Hi everyone, I'm Angie. Welcome to Make It Monday. So this month we are going to create a macrame leaf. This is what the leaf looks like. It has been sprayed with fabric stiffener so that it will hold its shape. And that is what we're going to create today. So I am going to set this one aside and we are going to get started. And I am going to work on top of this white piece of paper. Hopefully that will help you be able to see a little bit better. Okay, so the first thing we need is macrame cord. This is the brand that I used. It's a Lion brand. It's called Macramé. This happens to be, let's see, the color is mineral, so it's kind of a brown. This is what they call a single twist macrame cord. If you'll notice, some macrame cords are double twisted, and so they look more like a rope. This is what they call a single twist, which it's just kind of spun, but it makes it much easier to comb this out to create our leaf. So that is the macrame cord that you will need. It is a single twist 4mm macrame cord. And what I've done is cut it into pieces. So the pieces that you'll need is one 24-inch piece, 20 10-inch pieces, and 8 8-inch pieces. So what we're going to start with is our 24-inch piece. This is going to be the spine of our leaf. So this is going to become this big long piece down the center. So the first thing we need to do is to get our loop in the top of it. So what we need to do is tie an overhand knot. So what I've done is just folded the piece in half with the loop at the top, and where the loop is where you're going to tie your knot. So I'm just going to twist this around my fingers, tuck this underneath, and you just want to make sure you give yourself a nice loop to hold that. That's going to be your hanger for the wall, so however big you want that to be. The next thing I'm going to do is tape this down. It's just going to help hold it in place. So I just have a piece of packing tape, and I'm actually going to just tape it to my board here. And this will just kind of allow me to pull on it a little bit without it going all over the place. So the next thing I have is my 20 10-inch pieces. And these are going to get tied on to this center piece. So every time you tie these, you're going to fold the piece in half. You're going to slide that underneath your main piece. Then you're going to take your ends and you're going to tuck it through. And your ends are always going to be at the top. So this loop area that you see here is always going to be on the bottom. So you just want to remember that that loop is always on the bottom. So you're just going to pull this tight, and then you can push it up towards your knot and just pull that tight. So we've got our first piece on there. So the next piece, you're going to alternate these back and forth. The next piece is going to go on the opposite side. So again, we're going to tuck that folded piece under. We're going to bring the loop across, we're going to feed the ends through, and the loop is going to stay on the bottom. And we're going to pull that tight, and then I'm going to push it up. And the reason I push it up is so that you have a nice full leaf by the time you get all of these pieces on. All right, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to fold our piece in half. So we're going to go on this side this time. So we're going to tuck that piece underneath our two strings. Feed your ends through the loop. The loop stays on the bottom, and we're going to pull it tight. All right, we're going to do one more. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the opposite side. Feed that loop under your strings. Feed your ends through the loop. We're going on this side. Sometimes you have to remind yourself where you are. And then the loop is on the bottom, and then pull it tight. And again, as you're working, you're going to just kind of slide these up a little bit. It's just going to make a nice full leaf that way. So you're going to continue on with all of your strands until you get all 20 of your strands on. So I'm going to go off screen and finish that, and then I'll be back to show you what we'll do with the next pieces. Welcome back, everybody. All right, so you've got your 20 10-inch pieces tied on there. There is also 8 8-inch pieces. And the 8-inch pieces, the only reason they're a little bit smaller is because when you get down to the base of your leaf, it's smaller. So then why waste thread that you're going to cut off anyway? So I already started tying my 8-inch pieces on there. There's 8 of them. And these get tied on the same way your 10-inch pieces did. Through the loop and keeping that loop on the bottom, and then just pulling. And these are just your last few pieces. So you would tie those on the same way that you do your other pieces. So I'm just going to finish tying the last 4 of my pieces on here. Tighten them up, and then I'm going to squish it up a little bit. 2 more to go. We're going to keep tying. And then this will be our last piece. Okay, so this doesn't look, you're wondering, how does this get from this to this? So what we're going to do is we're going to comb out our threads. Just an ordinary hair comb is all you need. I've seen where some people use like a pet brush with the metal tines. That can also be used, but I found just an ordinary comb worked just fine. So these pieces, what I do is I like push those down, and see how this is quite a bit longer? I'm going to just take my scissors and just trim those to about the same length. That stem piece is always just a little bit off, so that way they should be fairly close. So I start, this has a finer end and a bigger end, and I like to start with the big end first, and it's just like combing hair, you guys, except for I just combed my knot there. So you just need to be careful about that bottom knot. Actually, I totally missed a step. You just look at mine. Yep, we need to tie an overhand knot so that that knot doesn't slip off. And I should have done that before I trimmed this piece. But I'm going to make this work. This is the beauty. You guys get to see my mistakes without them being edited out. That we get to pull this through. Okay, that's going to work. It's got a couple strands to pull there. There we go. Okay, so disregard that last spot. You want to tie your knot before you trim your end piece. But this will all still work out fine. Okay, back to combing. So again, we're going to comb, and I like to do one side at a time. And it's okay to kind of pull it, you know, I kind of hold that center piece, and I just literally comb through it like you're combing somebody's hair. And that's why the single twist works a lot better for this. The double twist, you can do it, but it just takes quite a bit more to comb out because it's just so twisted. All right, so now we're going to go to this side. hand's in the way there. And I comb it out as best I can with the big end, and then I'll go back through with the small end and really comb it through with that smaller end. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Try and switch up my hands here. And I'm not being too gentle with this, but I do like to hold that middle section then if I'm going to pull so hard on it. Okay. So now I'm going to just start combing this kind of into the leaf shape that I want. You know, your leaf does turn down a little bit from the top. Okay, so that looks pretty good. We've got that pretty combed out. Okay, now we need to trim it into our leaf shape because that doesn't look very good right the way it is. Okay, because I am not great at freehanding, I wanted something to guide me into how I was going to trim this. So I went online and I just found a leaf shape. Just something that would help me guide it into a nice shape. So what I did is just cut that out, and I'm just going to lay that on top of this. And then that just kind of gives me a nice guide to trim. The key thing to trimming is you need a really sharp scissors. These are my sewing scissors that I use only for fabric and cloth. You just want a really sharp scissors to do this with. So what I do is I just hold that leaf pattern in place, and I am going to just slowly start to trim around this. And I'm going to leave myself, you know, a couple inches. Like I said, I'm just really using this as a guide to kind of trim it out and trim it up so that it actually looks more like a leaf shape. So I'm just trimming around it. And you're going to get a few extra little strands. It requires a little bit of trimming to get everything trimmed up. Okay, I'm going to untape this from my surface because I'm not good at trimming the other direction. So I'm just going to peel off my tape so that I can spin this whole thing around. And I'll fix up that end in a little bit, but I just want to get it started into the shape. So again, I'm going to give myself a lot of leeway room on the outside edge. You don't have to trim it right up. Like I said, I'm just really using it as a guide to help me shape my leaf. Okay. All right, got a couple long stragglers there. I'm going to trim that. All right, so I've got that kind of trimmed. I'm going to go through and comb it again. And I'll need to fix that bottom because that one piece is really short, so I just need to trim that down. But I'm just going to comb it out again. Okay. Now I'm going to kind of fix that end up a little bit here. Let's see. Slide that up just a little bit. And I'm just going to start curving this just a little bit so that it's more along the line of that bottom piece. And I'll just kind of fade it into where I've already cut so that it all blends in a little more nicely. And then just trim up my edges a little bit. All right, I'm going to pull that off and comb that a little bit just to make sure that that looks like it's more in line. I've got just a little bit more I want to trim off here. Okay, and it's not going to be super perfect. Once we stiffen it, you can go back through and trim again. But that actually looks pretty good. Okay, so there we've got our leaf. Seeing one long straggler in here. Okay, so we've got everything trimmed up. Now we need to stiffen it. So I'm going to get set up to do that, and we'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, everybody, welcome back. So I've got my, what I call my splat box here. Anytime I'm spraying something, I put it in this box. Just keeps the spray from going all over the place. So what we're going to do is I've got my leaf on it, just a piece of scrap paper, combed it out the way I wanted it, and then we're going to spray it with fabric stiffener. The product I'm going to use is this Aleene's Stiffen Quik. Just comes in a pump bottle. You can find it at most fabric stores, or you can find it online at Amazon. And it works really well to do this with. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to spray this onto the leaf really well on both sides. So I am just going to need to be back here a little bit. And I'm going to saturate this pretty good on both sides because I really want it to get into the fibers. Okay, I've got one side sprayed. I'm going to just flip it over. And we're going to comb this out, so don't be alarmed that it's not quite perfect, because once we pull it out of the box, after we've sprayed both sides, we are going to comb through it really well. So again, I'm going to just saturate the fibers really well. And I recommend making sure you wash your comb after you're done with this, because it gets sticky. Okay, so I feel like I've got that sprayed really well. I'm going to move my box aside, and I've got a piece of wax paper here. And at this point, I would decide which you want to be the front of your leaf and which you want to be the back. So I've got that out of the way. I'm going to take my comb, and again, I'm going to comb through this so that I'm actually combing the stiffener into the fibers. Okay, so I've got the back side combed really well. And again, don't be afraid to pull on these fibers a little bit. I'm just trying to get it into the, so now I'm going to kind of put my hand there just to kind of keep things smooth. And this is the side I want to be my front. So I always comb the front side last. And again, I'm going to comb through this. Because I want it to be nice and straight. And then I'm going to kind of shape it because I want that to be curved down a little bit on the top there. So I'm going to shape it down a little bit. And I'm going to kind of push it together at the bottom until I get it looking the way I want. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Okay, once you've sprayed it, you're going to leave it dry for 1 hour. If you decide that it's not stiff enough to your liking, you can do another coat of spray, but it does need to dry for 1 hour. Also at that point, and I only used 1 coat on this one, and I thought it held up just fine. So I would just, 1 spray to me is fine on if you, as long as you do both sides. So set this aside to dry for 1 hour. At that point, if you want, you can trim up. If you've got any more stragglers that you want to trim up, I would trim them at that point once it's completely dry. So I want to thank you all for joining me for this macrame leaf. I love this project. I think it's been a lot of fun. We will be back next month. I am not sure what the project is. Nicole will be doing the class next month, and I know she has something fun planned. So thanks for joining me for Make It Monday. We'll see you next month. Thanks. Bye-bye.